Aloha, friends, and welcome back to this week's episode of the Embodied Healing Self, where we hold a platform for conscious conversations around accessing the embodied healer within you so that you can access your soul's wisdom. So I'm really excited to share with you today's guest. Today's guest is Nicolas David Ngan. And you may remember 6 weeks ago on my episode with Barbara Amalia Schaefer-Berdner, Embody Your Light Body, when we sort of made a universal call out to enter request, hoping to have Nicolas on the show, and here he is. So I'm really excited and honored to share him with you today. Nicolas has brought the original teachings for soul contract reading, also known as spiritual numerology of Moses, to England from the United States in 1990, where he trained with the founder of this work, Frank Alper, who channeled through this system in the 1980s and commenced training practitioners in the UK in 1994. And then the first UK teachers in 2003. He is one of the leading teachers of this work in the English-speaking world in conjunction with Almeria Ariel Aller. They have greatly expanded upon the original teachings of Frank Alper with 44 years of development and experience. Nicolas is also a teacher of divine healing, the master key to ascension, which is based on the principle of ask and you shall receive, as did I to have you as a guest on the show, and is designed to dismantle the human ego so that we can return in consciousness to source energy. The other modality he teaches is light body integration, which many of you listeners may remember, Embody Your Light Body with Barbara, a show that we recorded a few weeks ago, and I know Nicolas was a teacher of hers, which is all about removing the programs, the beings, and energetic structures that create the illusion that we are small, limited human beings when we are in fact vast, multi-dimensional masters having this limited human experience. It enables spiritual seekers to embody much more of their higher consciousness and express it in their service on the earth. He offers powerfully transformative individual sessions to assist spiritual seekers to clear deep core issues that have been blocking their lives, using the modalities above so that they can manifest their soul purpose and live more fulfilling lives. And so for the listeners to the show, you know that is a lot of what we're talking about on this show. His purpose is to hold space for spiritual seekers to open their hearts as to embody and express their soul purpose, and as to maximize the raising of humanity's consciousness as a part of the ascension process. He is also the co-founder of the Center for Conscious Ascension, whose purpose is here to assist light workers through the process of ascension. There is a gradual awakening of the personality to embody vaster and higher levels of awareness and consciousness, which is what they do at the Center of Conscious Ascension. And this is in the UK. He is also Amazon's #1 best-selling author on both sides of the Atlantic Ocean of Your Soul Contract Decoded. I have the book right here. You can find it on my website as well. I share it with you in my podcast resources. And he has 4 top-ranking shows on Gaia, Open Minds channel with Regina Meredith on soul contract work, and Walk-in Souls. He teaches practitioners globally online in soul contract reading, divine healing, and light body integration. So as I share this guest with you, I just want to share how Nicolas came into my world, which is a couple of years ago, through some friends of mine, which I met through a retreat that I attended, who were students of yours, Bernita, Patsy, and then Barbara. Barbara, who has been on the show, Patsy, who is going to be a guest on the show, in about another 6 weeks. So I say this just to say, this is one of those times in life where we just open to receive and we welcome what comes in, and it opens up another level of consciousness or expansion for us. So the moment I heard about you, I felt it in my body. It was something that I needed to learn. It was holding an answer for me that I was seeking from the work that I was doing at the time, which was health coaching, to the work that I would be stepping into, which is more spiritually focused life coaching. And I signed up for your webinar. It was a live webinar with you. And while we were on the show, you picked my soul contract to share with everybody. So on the show, you went through my soul contract, and then we proceeded to have a follow-up conversation around it in some areas that I am still, and this may come up today, that I'm still in the process of integrating to move forward, which is how our soul contracts with other people work, and our name changes with our family. That's a whole nother conversation. And as part of the work that I do, I now work with some of your students and offer soul contract readings for my clients by referring them to some of your students so that they can do the work with the people that I work with. So thank you so much for being here. Thank you for allowing me to introduce you and to share some of the work that you've done. I'm very grateful for this space, for your time, for your willingness to be on the show and share your work in the world today, Nicolas. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Jen. Really looking forward to it, exploring this further.
Yes, I'm really excited to share. And I want to dive into a little bit about who you are as a person, and ask you, as we go into who you are as a person, kind of ask you about your awakening story and how you got into this work. So Nicolas was born in New Zealand. He completed a degree in chemical engineering. So I'm a former mechanical engineer. Barbara was a former engineer, and I love to find people who blend science and spirit together. And he worked in research and marketing, but he always felt like there was something special for him to do in life that the conventional system wasn't telling him. He left New Zealand in 1987 and traveled throughout Southeast Asia and lived in Japan for nearly 2 years in search of that special thing. This was the beginning of his spiritual awakening. And after traveling to Europe, he worked in London in corporate finance and satellite communications until 1997. You then traveled to Central and South America, India and Nepal, visiting sacred sites and connecting with high frequency energies of the Andes and the Himalayas. So I'm going to stop right there, because as I'm reading this and all of the things that I read before this that come after this, I'm feeling the huge energy shift from the person that you were born into, the person that you were living as, I should say, in that moment, and then the person who had this awakening. And I don't know if it was a moment or if it was a period of time, but then as I look at the story of your life, I can see everything just shifted, and you knew that there was a greater purpose, a bigger vision. You left the work you were doing, you began traveling, visiting sacred sites, connecting with high frequency energies. So I'm wondering if you'd be willing to share with us just a little bit about that experience, that moment in your life, or that time period, from who you were living in at that time, to who you knew you were supposed to become. Was there a moment in time, or what was that awakening process? What did that look like?
Well, there were two moments, actually. I was sitting in my glass box in the city of London in my suit, and it was a clear blue sky. And there was this cloud which went past my window in the shape of an angel that flew by, and it sort of looked at me. It was about 200 feet long, which got my attention, obviously, especially when the cloud was moving and there were no other clouds, and it seemed to be looking at me strongly. And then a few weeks later, I was in Spain on a spiritual retreat in the Sierra Nevadas, and the sun was rising, this brilliant orange sunrise, and I got up to watch the sunrise, and in that moment there's a voice in me, really strong. I feel it was the soul saying, I can't do this anymore. I can't be in the corporate world. had a very high pressure job developing commercial services on satellite communication systems, and working 12 hours a day, crazy hours. Very interesting as an engineer, and I'd moved into the from technical to marketing type of work. And then I knew I had to leave that job. It was like someone unplugged that job. And I knew I had to leave and go out in the world and find once more. So this is 10 years on from the first time I left New Zealand in 1987. What it was I was here to really do. I was already on the spiritual path, but it was a gradual awakening. And so I converted my job into a part-time job for 6 months to finish off on my projects. Didn't take on any new ones. And then I went traveling for about a year to the high places. I was drawn to go to the Himalayas and the Andes. I've been reading books about masters of the Far East and the experiences of meeting these people. So it was just the draw of the soul. So basically I've been exploring these places and all the pyramids, Inca and Mayan ruins in Central and South America. And it was like I was being activated. I could feel it. I was sort of guided to follow very specific pathways and go along all these sacred lines. And up very high, I could feel like the energy was opening to higher consciousness, especially in the Himalayas. There was one moment where I kept seeing the same man appearing to me on this trek we were on in Nepal. And then I realized, how could he have got from one place to the other without passing me on the trek? And I realized this is one of these masters. Only a master could do that. It took me a little while to work it out. So basically, he was sort of smiling at me from a distance and keeping an eye on me. So I knew something was really up when that happened. Because clearly he wasn't fully physical at times, or he could move without, he could just transport himself from one place to the other. So I knew I was on the right track. And that, waking up, sleeping at 10,000 feet in the Himalayas to this beautiful sunrise on the mountains, sort of had the sense of expansiveness. So I felt they were really opening me up, my guides, and getting me ready. And I didn't have a clear idea I'd be doing what I do now. I just knew I had to leave what I was doing, and I had just to go in the world and just explore, just trust and see what happened. So I eventually ended up back in England starting to do what I do about a year later as a result of all that.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that with the audience. And as you were sharing, I'm thinking about some of the listeners on this show who are in that moment right now. They're in that moment of knowing that where they are and what they're doing, it's not in alignment with who they are. And in my story, as working hard as a corporate engineer, it resulted in a health crisis, which was kind of my wake-up call. It was kind of my awakening moment, was liver failure, health crisis. So we're sharing two different sort of paths here. Mine was a very quick body shutdown, choose to live differently. And yours was sort of a gradual path of these moments. And I know that in the coaching that I do, I hear people have had either both of these experiences, or they're in a space of discernment at this time. There's a knowing in them that where they are is not where they want to be or what they're supposed to do. And sometimes it does manifest as a breakdown in health or in a marriage, or, it can manifest in some way because it's not in alignment. And so what I want to ask you is, how does a person who, with an engineering mind, which I can relate to, who loves, answers and structure and loves to see that 2 + 2 = 4, just, how does that mindset all of a sudden shift to this curiosity of, and this inner knowing of, there's a master teacher appearing on my path, and there's a point of like acceptance that that it's possible that this is the reality, not what I thought was the reality before. What if you look back at that person, can you remember how it felt or appeared inside, what it took to be able to really embrace this sort of new reality that you knew you were here to do?
Yeah, I've been in a very structured environment because it's a space industry and you have to get it right, because if you don't, it doesn't work. And if it doesn't work, it's very expensive. If it doesn't work, because you're talking about launching very expensive pieces of metal into space. So, there were very specific procedures and structures and processes for doing everything. So, and you had to, big manuals, it's just very complex. And they were good at it. And that was the reason why they were good at it. And I worked with some of the top people in the world in that business to be able to do that. Otherwise, without them, it would never happen. So I basically got unplugged. My Western educated left brain got unplugged completely. And so all of that left brain masculine structure, I had to let go, which was very alarming because I was used to having a structure to work with and I didn't realize I had one, how strong it was till I left. So it was the beginning of letting go, of just trusting and moving from the mind gradually into the body and the heart over many years of trusting, and especially when I was starting to do this work in London, and just trusting what felt right rather than futuring and working out what I should do next. Because, we used to write business plans and it's a 15 to 20 year plan of where a business is going to go. And it was very much getting in the now moment and learning ultimately just to do the next right thing. What opened my heart the most. And I tried to do lots of planning, but half the things would never work because I was doing the corporate approach, which doesn't work when you're doing the spiritual work. Mm-hmm. So it's taken many years to let go of that and move to the right brain and just have a feeling and trust it and clear my body of a lot of emotional trauma from childhood, which kept me in my head. But eventually just feeling, okay, now it's time to do this. Now it's time to do that. And being okay with not knowing what the next step will be beyond the one that's going to come. So I learned to, over 20 years, to actually follow what we call the spiritual signature, which is what opens the heart the most in a given moment. So I learned just to feel or visualize my options and go with what opened the heart the most, even if it wasn't logical to the left brain, which is a big shift for someone with a scientific training and had used science for a very long time and had to know about data and measuring things and facts and all that sort of stuff that goes with it. So trusting the unknown, going with what opened my heart the most, and following a very non-linear process of unfolding the real mission here. So it was quite a scary process. I was very stressed. My dentist gave me a mouth guard to stop grinding my teeth for the first 2 years of doing this. He said, if we don't give you this, you're going to have no teeth left. Because my left brain was hanging on tight. The mind was hanging on tight. So it was learning to go with that flow over many years. And the more I did that, the better things went. Opportunities would come out of nowhere. Bright people would turn up. I get different ideas for what I should do in terms of workshops and sessions. So eventually the left brain realized, actually, this is starting to work. This is actually starting to work. It took quite a few years. First 2 years were the most challenging. And I worked on myself emotionally to clear all my soul contract programs, especially lots of disempowering trauma and the impact, the stress of living in the corporate world. It took me a year to decompress from that because it was so high pressure, as most people know. And then moving with the natural flow and following the flow of spirit, taking the right actions, and all the pieces started to form. I knew there were answers there, but I learned not to keep grasping at them. Things would come at the right time. They'd become part of my life, in terms of business relationships, opportunities, and put them out there. And gradually it started to coalesce this business. And what I realized was that it wasn't up to little old me in this small body to work it all out, which I used to think it was, which is very, very stressful. I was actually a conduit for my higher self, which had designed the whole thing already. But what it was doing is that when I was ready, it was drip feeding me bits of the plan. So once I realized that, I surrendered to that. I just sort of was more trusting then and open and just waited for the next piece to come. Then I would do my best to implement it, however that was, for the long-term plan for what I do. And then I met Almira in 1999, and she was the one who taught me how to follow the signature, follow the feminine process, which I had no idea before then. And so by having that feminine influence, that helped me balance myself out. And we created the Centre for Conscious Ascension. And this is how we built the business. We built from a little business in London, local business, to gradually now a global business. She runs a separate business now because we divorced and she wanted to do her own thing. But basically we followed the signature and things started to unfold. New spiritual technology started to come to us. Divine healing came to us. We expanded the soul contract reading work. We expanded the light body work, which I learned in America. And we had 3 primary tools for awakening people. We had the soul contract work, which gives the spiritual map of your life, which is basically based on the birth certificate name, gives you the general direction you're meant to go in, the potential the soul puts in place, but how we live it and we work through it is open to our own free will. So it's a choice of how we engage with it. I could have stayed in the corporate world and got ill probably, or I could have surrendered and go with the flow, which is what I did. Mm-hmm. And then we use divine healing, which is using the higher self to dismantle our ego onion, all the illusions of who we think we are and how we view the world through our ego filters, created by the higher self through the soul contract. So divine healing is designed to clear the pathway the soul contract lays out for you. Because most people, even if they understand it, trying to get there is another matter. You've got to actually dismantle what the ego's put in place to stop you getting there, your karma. And then the light body integration work, which is about embodying higher consciousness to come into a much clearer vessel, which you've cleared with divine healing, to embody, because the key to actually manifesting real purpose is to bring higher consciousness in, because it's not a little us here that does it. We're actually like one of those computer projectors you have in the corporate world that your laptop goes into. We actually have to open up a channel to a really clear connection and clean the lens. Then the spirit will come through and it will project out into the matrix. And that's actually what manifests your purpose. So the main thing is that you just got to open and get clear emotionally, raise your consciousness. And then higher self will manifest that purpose. It's almost like we become a witness to the rest of us in the higher dimensions. It's not little old us having to work really hard, 12 hours a day to make it happen. It's got to get out of the way. So we're sort of the ground crew for a much vaster consciousness, which is trying to raise the frequency down here. So once I sort of surrendered to that idea, it was like, it took me years to grasp what was going on. Then I realized if I surrender, it'll all unfold in its own good time. And life got better, life got more fulfilling. There are issues, obviously, being human, you've got to deal with your karma and things like that. But at least things were flowing better. And it was more fulfilling and satisfying. And I wasn't one of the 87% of people who are emotionally disconnected from their work, which is Gallup put a poll on that. Yeah. If you allow for the margin of error, that's pretty much everybody doing a normal job. So I'd stepped outside that matrix into a different world.
Yeah, I love that. Thank you for sharing all of that. And just 2 weeks ago, the episode that I recorded was living in alignment with your natural flow. And there is that choice of the surrender and the receiving of that divine energy that comes through. And what I love as you shared your story and how that all came together with you is that in a sense that part of you that was, that lived in that world of the structure and the the logic, you were then able to sort of create a new kind of structure and container for this work through your book, through the Center of Conscious Ascension. So in a sense, what I see is that the former version of your life was still part of creating the container for the work that you would step into, and that you were able to then ground the work that you were receiving, that you were meant here to do, by creating another structure, another program where you now teach other teachers. You wrote a book, you can do the soul contract work. And I think it's really important as spiritual teachers that to be just reminded that part of us where we decide and we actually ground what we learn and what we know into something so that it can be shared and received by other people is such a huge gift. And so I really just want to honor that was also part of the work too, where I can see the former engineer that loved the structure was able to sort of integrate some of those, and maybe they show up as some of your physical talents and gifts, to come back around and then integrate it into a structure in a spiritual way. So thank you for sharing all that. I appreciate it in the sense that I know that there are listeners, the people who are listening to this show right now are listening because they might be in that space right now. As I am in the space of surrendering into what it is that I'm really here to do. And so I'm 42. I just turned 42. So in your cycles, in your book, you talk about the different 7-year cycles. I'm in the 7th cycle, stepping into, right? So I am in that space of creating like that new beginning. That's where I am right now. And I know that there are listeners on the show that are in that space as well, that know that they're probably showing up in their corporate environment as some type of healer, or in their work. They're already doing some type of like healing work, but it's not in full alignment with what they know they're supposed to do. And they might be afraid to break that pattern. So the soul contract, which is what we're going to move into, talks about, well, I'm going to invite you to talk about it. I'm going to actually read some of the things that you said. And I also want to touch on a point that I think is really important, because we talk about this on the show a lot. Clearing those energy blocks and healing that emotional trauma, that is what opened me up. So when I decided to, which I didn't even know these were subconscious, that I didn't even know they were there. And we've talked a lot about that on the show. But that's a huge part of stepping into that space of receiving, is really doing your own work and clearing that emotional trauma, that energy, so that you can then step into that place of that higher consciousness. And so I love that you shared that. We've recorded lots of shows on that. I think it's really important. And many of these things are part of the soul contract, because they include physical karma and spiritual karma, which are some of the things that we are here to work through. I'm going to let you talk more about that. What I want to share before I invite you to ask questions, because I don't want this to be missed, because I want people who are interested in this work to gain some points about what this book is about. So I'm going to hold the book up again. And I'm going to say that from my experience, when I bought the book, I went through and I was doing it all on my own, and I love math. So I did a pretty good job, and I actually did it right. And then, but there is so much energetically, and it is so valuable to actually have a teacher to do this for you and to share with you. I think I loved having both. I love having the book to refer to. And I'll say that should you choose to do this, I do believe that we receive what we're ready to in that moment. So in other words, where I was 2 years ago when you did the soul contract, I'm in a very different place now. So I didn't receive the full picture of the contract. And I just trust that I am where I am when I'm supposed to be. But having a teacher or somebody to go through the contract with you, somebody that you've trained, is so valuable. And so if you're interested in the book, I'm going to have that in the show notes to at least check out, kind of feel it out, figure it out yourself. Some of the key points that you mentioned about the book specifically, which is what I want to move into, is that the purpose of the soul contract reading is to tell you who you are and what your soul purpose is. So when I hear that, I'm like, well, what else are we here to do? We're here to embody our soul purpose. We're here to be our soul purpose. The procedure is based on an amazingly accurate system of numerology with its roots in antiquity. There you go. And, you know, again, I believe there is this, I see this like former engineer. I see the world in numbers, I always have. And then I see this ability to be able to integrate these systems into the spiritual world, which I am so grateful. So when I found this was speaking my language, because this was like, you know, everything that I felt like I could put into something tangible that felt right. Your birth name is converted into sounds of 22 phonetic Hebrew letters, which are then converted into numbers with the diagram of the Star of David. So we're actually gonna, on this show today, we're gonna go through my soul contract and share that with you guys. So for those of you that can see, this is my contract right here. So it's a Star of David, the upper triangle, which is the spiritual talents, karma, and goals, and then the triangle pointing down, which is the physical goals, karma, and talents. And you can tell us more about that. And so it talks about the talents that we possess and what we're here to overcome, the goals we are designed to achieve, and most importantly, our soul's underlying mission in this life. And so what it really does, what I was so grateful for is it for those of us, because there is this sense of like, for me, there was this wanting something tangible, because that, you know, wanting that structure, that safety, that map that showed me that I could connect to visually, that I could see, sense, and feel as I looked and as I go through what the soul contract says and I look at the book, I'm like, oh yeah, that's totally stuff I've been working on in this life. And it's actually quite simple. It's more simple than I think it sounds as you go through the book, which I really appreciated. So, if you're willing at this time, I'd really love to just invite you to share with me in your words, sort of a breakdown of how the soul contract was designed, specifically with the 2 triangles. And maybe it would be better to just go through, we could give the big picture framework first of how it was designed and what it means. And then in each of the categories, a couple of things that you write about in your book, such as double numbers, double letters, if there's anything that stands out for you to be shared at this time. And then we can dive into just reading mine to share with the listeners, to bring them into how this has shown up in my life so that they can kind of get a sense or a feel of how this can be impactful in our life.
Yeah, okay. Well, I'll share your chart now, okay? And then I can actually use it to explain how the system works first, and then we'll go into the meaning of it, okay?
Okay, great.
That's probably the quickest way to do this. Okay. So I'll just share the screen here. Right, it's going to be a little pen here. So the soul contract reading work is based upon the principle that sound is creative. So our soul reviews all our previous lives, and in designing this lifetime, it picks a name which is going to take us to the next step in our evolution, next step in growth. And you come across this work only when you're really ready to hear this. It's the way it seems to work. I've noticed this with a book, and that it either gets 4 or 5 stars on Amazon or 1 or 2, and the guys who have 1 or 2 have no understanding of what it means because they weren't quite ready for it. And the ones who get 4 or 5 stars, it's just plain as daylight to them. This is quite obvious. It's like you said, this is the only way it could be once they understand what the system is about. So the soul designs a name, a birth name, which is a set of sounds, which through the law of attraction is programmed into your DNA and into your energy fields and into a substance called karmic matrix, which is like a grey cobweb substance at the fourth and fifth and sixth dimensional layers of us. And it literally radiates out to the matrix, and the matrix rearranges around it. And so by decoding the sounds of this name using ancient Hebrew, we can actually work out exactly what the soul is creating. And if we know what it's creating, we can then flow with it and work with it, rather than going and driving around in the dark, which most people do, and they keep hitting things, and it's not going quite so well in life. So what happens here is that we convert it into the equivalent Hebrew sounds, these 22 Hebrew sounds. Hebrew is one of the sacred languages that comes out of the movement to a great spiritual God in a non-religious sense. And Hebrew has inherent within it, each letter has an inherent number within it. They're not assigned to it like normal conventional numerology, they're inherent within it. And these are the Hebrew numbers here. And they each have a specific meaning, which comes from the soul of Moses, who channeled the system through Frank Harper in the 80s. So we take these numbers and we decode them on the Star of David. And this is a gateway of consciousness. And these energies are sitting in us, in our energy fields and in our bodies. And the downward pointing triangle represents the physical side of life. So our soul is eternal, and it chooses to incarnate in this dense reality so that it can have this visceral emotional experience of growth through different personalities each lifetime. So like Jen, you and I, we've not existed before as personalities, but our soul has with other personalities. So this is our first time anywhere as a consciousness. So we're an experiment in consciousness. That's what's going on here. And so we have to form our conscious personality. We have to get grounded, learn conditioned responses, education, relationships, careers. And between the ages of 35 and 42, we get restless. I left my corporate job at 37. You've made this transition already, and you're now 42. So we are searching for much more than what this triangle initially creates. We're searching for the real purpose, which is the spiritual triangle. And the soul is hoping that we will establish a good foundation here, so the spiritual triangle can ground into that, and it can get on with its real mission here. And this is why we have the spiritual crisis, liver failure. I have to leave this job. I can't take it anymore, no matter what. It was a very good job. And so we go searching. This is me searching, looking for the real purpose. And so this is the awakening. Most people interpret it as a midlife crisis, buy a sports car or whatever, and or leave relationships, leave jobs. So what happens here is that in each of these triangles, these three aspects, is karma, talents, and goals. And physical karma is a set of unresolved past life issues that the soul programs in to the contract to create the negative context in our lives. It creates everything we don't like. And when we have something we don't like, which most of us do when we're younger, we get pretty clear what we do like. It's called the law of attraction, or the law of opposites actually, which goes to the law of attraction. You always get what you don't like. So then you focus on what you do like, and the way you work through this stuff is that the physical talents here, which are latent, activate to help you burn through the karmic issues. And if you consciously turn into the karmic issue, the hardest stuff you face, and transmute it into positive energy, it turns into our actual gifts, our physical gifts. And so this is one of the secrets of life. The last place we would look for our gifts, spiritual gifts of any kind, is in our greatest challenges. We think it's somewhere else. But by consciously turning into it, this becomes our gift, and the talents get stronger, and that helps us move towards our goals, what basically excites us, what gets us out of bed in the morning. So the energy moves from karma to talents to goals in the physical, and then simultaneously it's moving from the spiritual karma to the spiritual talents to spiritual goals. But what's happening here is that this is the big answer to what's my purpose. So if we can open up by burning through, using our spiritual talents, which are latent to burn through our spiritual karma, then we start to get a taste of what our real purpose is. And then it helps us move towards our spiritual goals here. Once the talents get organized. So if we're consciously working with all our 6 outer aspects, which we can do with this work, rather than driving around in the dark with the lights off and no sat-nav, we can gradually start to manifest our self-purpose. Everyone feels there's something important they're here to do who's a spiritual seeker, but very few actually can get to what is it really, because the soul won't reveal it until you work through enough of the outer stuff. So this is time along the bottom and percentage complete. Each of these, this is good for engineers, you're completing something over time. And when you hit certain trigger points, more of the soul destiny starts to reveal itself layer by layer. So it's gradually revealed what you're going to do as you complete this. I just knew I had to leave my job. I had no idea what I was going to do, where I was going to live, how I was going to do it. And then Center for Conscious Ascension started. And then it spread throughout the world. And then in about 2011, Spirit said to me, time to write a book on this, for example. I never even thought of that idea. It just kept coming to me. And so I said, okay, we'll write a book. And then it was published in 2013. I had no idea it would be a bestseller. And then I had no idea I'd be on Gaia for 4 shows. And you're allowed 5 max. So, and so this work, the plan of the soul destiny, gradually unfolded in ways I'd never dreamt of here. So by consciously working on our soul contract, magic can happen. Things which are unimaginable can happen. Life can take some really interesting turns. But it's about, as I said earlier, being in the moment with whatever's presenting in the contract and working with it, turning into it, engaging with it. And in this case, clearing it with, I use divine healing here to clear the issue. And then you integrate it, then the next thing happens. So it's actually all in us, in our name. We've just got to be conscious of what's happening and transform each challenge as we go, because it can only be there because there is an answer to it. There's a way forward, which I learned, my mind tried to figure it out, but after doing this for a while, I realized the challenge is only there because it's asking me a question. Now I've just got to be still and wait for the answer to come from higher consciousness. There is a way through this. And I probably can't figure it out, but if I feel it out, it will come to help me do this for each of the 6 aspects. And that way, actually, life's like a puzzle. It does unfold if we just give it a chance. And so in following this flow, following the spiritual signature through the flow of whatever's presenting, because the soul, what it will do is it will trigger different aspects here. So you might have 2 of these running very strongly at once. These are more dormant. Then the soul may say, okay, we're done with that after 6 months. Let's go and do this one. So it changes the flavor of what we work with. But if we follow that flow and work with it, life does happen. Life becomes more fulfilling. And if you hit what I call a threshold of soul integration, if you clear enough of the ego, what then happens is that you're flowing not from what the ego wants to do, but from what the higher consciousness wants to do, then your life becomes much more graceful. Then things just start turning up. It's much smoother, a lot less static. So the goal is to actually clear enough of this contract to reach, I guess you call it liftoff, really, spiritually, and then your mission can really happen. Okay, most people don't get to that point because they don't know the direction to follow, which is what the purpose of this work is. But if you do, you enter a completely different world. So there could be 3D chaos out there, but life is working in a beautiful way. So the key is to follow this thing, follow the contract, soul contract with consciousness, and life will unfold. So what we've done is we've taken your numbers here, we've allocated them in a clockwise spiral starting at physical karma. We use them all up. And then what we do is that we add them up. For example, in physical karma, 14 plus 12 plus 11 is 37. There are 22 numbers in the system. So I must reduce that to the first number between 1 and 22. So I go 3 plus 7 equals 10. It becomes the left-hand aspect of physical talents. And the right-hand aspect is 1 plus 0 equals 1. So it's the pure frequency of a 10. These are just English numbers, Roman numbers for a Hebrew frequency. It doesn't mean 10 is greater than a 1. And there's a 1 here. So in a given day, Jen, you're somewhere on this continuum between a 10 and a 1, like hot and cold taps in the shower. And the soul is going to explore this entire continuum through your life. In the case of spiritual karma, the total is 36. So 3 plus 6 equals 9. 9 can't be reduced anymore, so 9 plus nothing is another 9. So we have a double number. So it's basically saying there's one frequency in spiritual karma you need to work through, and you don't have the range of experience of this. So we figure out all the numbers in the same way. And then what we do is we take the physical numbers, put them on the top half of this table, spiritual numbers on the bottom half, and then we add them up to get the 47 and the 38. So 4 plus 7 is 11, because it's got to be less than 22. 38, 3 plus 8 equals 11. But we need the small single digit, so 1 plus 1 equals 2. So we get an 11, 2 here in soul destiny. So we take that and we place it in the middle. Then what we do is that we put all these channel symbols that Frank brought through here, and they are like energetic portals. For those of you who are very sensitive to energy, which is probably most people watching this, just look at the numbers and feel them. Okay, or put your finger on the screen if you're watching this on YouTube, and you'll feel the energy. And these are going to talk to me here, these numbers. Okay, and because we have 4 8s here, that gives you a dominant vibration. 4 or more of the same numbers, a dominant vibration. So Jen, the best way to start this is to ask you, what's the most important question you want to ask about your life at this time? And that'll give me the gateway to read this contract. And I'll do my best to answer that question.
So as I'm hearing you speak, and I vividly remember reading about the soul integration. And I think the question I had before is now different than where I am now in this moment. So I really feel the frequency of the 8. And I'm really being drawn to the 4 4 in talents and the 9 9 in karma right now. So I'm in a space of, I believe after what you said, like I feel like where I'm at this point in time is creating that space for the soul integration. So as I say that, if I were to ask the question, like, what is my soul destiny? I feel like that's the shortcut that I actually want to know, like, what is the next area of the chart? What am I being asked to step into? Like, what is maybe the next area that I'm being asked to trust and live in the flow with, or to lean into that's uncomfortable? I feel like I'm at a fork in the road and I get to choose. So what I'm asking for clarity around, I got it, is spiritual talents.
Okay. Let's do a brief reading on each of the aspects so that I have some context, okay, to lead up to these spiritual talents. So in physical karma, there's an 8, which is like an amoeba, a watery amoeba. And this is telling me you don't come to Earth very often. So does it feel like a really alien place to you, or did it when you were younger? You couldn't quite get how all this emotional stuff worked?
Yes.
Yeah. And that you were pretty much in your head as a child. This is probably why you became an engineer when you were younger. You needed to understand it and do it from the mind. Work out how life worked from the mind.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So this is saying, because there's 8 here, physical karmas, physical goals, spiritual goals, that it's all about grounding and moving from the mind into the body, from left to right brain. It's interesting you're in a female body, so it's definitely saying that was meant to happen. Mm-hmm. And that you would have come into feeling your way through life and setting clear boundaries and flowing from your emotions primarily to actually be on the spiritual path. And as you come into the body and set clear boundaries, this enables you to be okay to feel the energies around you outside this boundary, but to learn to visit society and visit but not get over involved in all the machinations and complexity and polarized activity we're seeing around the world at the moment. And that's primarily because we're ascending and all the darkness and the light is being amplified both ways next to extremes. This is why the world's a pretty strange, chaotic place at the moment. For those who are more focused on staying in their separation, it gets stronger. Those who have the light feel more joyful as a result of having that light amplified. So you're really here as a spiritual seeker to engage with society, with your work, which is what you're doing here. You're reaching out to people with your work, voice aids, being in society. This is about first understanding how it works, rather than figuring it out, feeling it out. And this is about being successful at doing that. Okay. And this is about grounding here, the sharing of knowledge. The four is a sharing of the flow. I'm going to jump around a bit here. So you're here to take knowledge which resonates with you, just like you're doing with this work, and duplicating it, because you talked about it with Barbara, okay? And duplicating it, and then creating one of these guys. So you're here to share things which resonate with you. You're here to share knowledge, really. That's what the spiritual talent here is, okay? And you're here, ultimately, this 11, is to build your own unique structure of knowledge that resonates with you and to support people emotionally to receive that knowledge. So you're here to obtain knowledge and build your own unique structure and share it at a very high level with people. How does that feel?
That's totally resonating, which is why I think we're having this conversation, because that's what you have done. I don't know if that's your soul destiny, but that's what I see in the work that you have done, is that you've created a structure through the center of conscious ascension and the work that you do. Yes. So that resonates. What's been coming through for me is what I've been hearing from Source, is that I am in a space where I am ready to almost step into that teacher role. So, and as I say that, there's like, well, I'm only 42. Like, how could that be? But I was 28 when things started to shift for me. So for me, it feels like confirmation that what I'm hearing and what I feel knows is to be true, to step into creating some type of like school or structure in becoming a teacher, because I'm a great student of life, and I learn and I am embody, and I learn very quickly. And I also have the courage to go way outside the box and learn in a way that not everybody is given the resources to do or chooses to do. So having those experiences, it feels like I'm being called to step forward into creating something where I can, at some point in time, become a teacher of sort of where I've been for the past like 7 years, which is the student and always the student. But is that in alignment with what you're saying?
Well, yeah, we can look at this physical talent 10-1. 10-1 is a very spiritual energy. It's the balanced masculine and feminine aspects of God. It's an androgynous energy coming in, and it's here to disseminate healing and knowledge to the world. So this is the teacher here. This is the divine masculine aspect of God. And this is probably why you went into masculine professions, here to learn how that worked. Probably the hard way by the sounds of it.
Yes, yep, for
All
sure.
Right? And so this is saying you're here to use spiritual knowledge, God consciousness, in pure service to humanity. You need to serve. It's not about making a pile of money or doing something physical. It's about you need to share the knowledge to the world. And that's the most fulfilling thing for you. Is that the case?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And it's all for the higher consciousness of humanity. That's where my energy is. That's where I feel it. It's not about me or one other person. It's all in just trusting. Because one thing that I've always known is that has never been questioned is my connection to source energy. So I feel like that's how I see the world.
Yeah, well, this is the direct connection to the divine, to high consciousness here, to God consciousness. That's where it comes from. This sort of knowingness that this is right, this is the way it is, and following it, and it works, pretty much. Yeah. So that's a very spiritual energy in the physical part of the charts. That's why it's saying the path you followed of leaving the corporate world is perfect, because you're here to serve with the spiritual energy. And the purpose of being in the corporate world was to experience the unconscious masculine, which runs the corporate world, the more patriarchal energy, and then to draw a clear boundary with it and have your know and claim your power, which sounds like that's what happened.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, especially when you leave and on your terms, not on the system's terms. Okay, and the other thing is this 9 in spiritual karma, which is like this dragon. So this is a big dark dragon initially, and so this is the negative context of this is having lots of being a perpetrator of disempowerment in previous lives. So in this life, it's about feeling disempowered initially. Did that happen? Could be parents.
Oh, yes.
Could be the corporate world. Could be both.
No. Age 7. I know clearly. Yes. Well, it was when I actually stepped into an empowered space. And as I stepped into an empowered space as a young girl, I was completely disempowered. And so then that led me down the path of stepping into that masculine energy, because that was how I figured I could keep myself safe.
Yeah, it didn't work too long though. It worked long enough, but then you realized that wasn't the way to do it, was it?
Well, absolutely. I mean, there was a subconscious belief that it kept me safe until my body just stopped working in that energy.
Couldn't do it anymore. Yeah.
Yeah.
So this is about going into the shadow of disempowerment and transmuting the shadow layer by layer into positive power to catalyze change in the world. That's what this 9 is about. And this is about really believing in yourself, being in charge, being very organized, making things happen. This 9, and trusting your channel, trusting your first instinct, which is the soul, communicating to you through your body, your spiritual signature. So it's very much about empowering others,
Mm-hmm.
especially your audience here, which I understand the majority is women, empowering others to move forward in their spiritual service here. That's what this is about, and sharing all your knowledge in a very grounded, down-to-earth way, so that as you get more grounded, you'll be able to make it more accessible to people. And building this body of knowledge and supporting others people to give them that structure. How do you transition from the left brain corporate world to moving back to your essential nature of being more in a feminine body in your case, and make that transition as smooth as possible, especially if you've got a mortgage and kids and a lot of commitments. How do you actually do that? It's a big juggling act. Many people asked me when I left my corporate job, how did you do that? How did you create a business? Because it was clear they all wanted to do the same. They wanted to leave, but they saw no way of doing it. They saw no structure. They were too invested in it. So this is about giving people enough structure and support so they can do that, but teach them a whole new structure of following. Well, the feminine flow of spirit really is the key for doing it. And the structure is not what the left brain thinks, but it is there. It can be formed and customized for each individual who wants to make that jump to really following their purpose and living that more fulfilled life. So I'd say that's what this is about, and empowering people to actually do that. Because when you no longer have to do as you're told, someone else tells you what to do, probably who you don't like very much, and you can become a sovereign being doing your own thing. Well, that's a big jump for most people. It's something very alien for most people who used to being in a box in the system. So yeah.
Well, thank you for reviewing that with me. As I look through my life and you talk about the 7-year cycles, like it's amazing that for me, it almost was exactly that. Like there was this, there was the corporate career for about 7 years, and then there was the liver failure, and then there was 7 years of healing from that. I was age 28 to 35 was all about healing. And then that's when I became a health coach. So this is where the grounding part is. The grounding for me is in taking care of the body.
That's the eight there. It's
yeah.
there.
It's saying like, I do want to be here. I do want to nourish this body. I am worthy of living this soul purpose. It's taking care of the body, knowing my self-worth, as you said, being organized and trusting. I hear that a lot, trusting and surrendering, because the energy of it feels bigger than me. So just remembering, for me, the grounding that you talk about is all in the body, which is what the embodied healing self is all about. It's just being in the body and transmuting the energy that comes through us in our life experiences, healing the emotional trauma, nourishing the body in the way that it needs to be nourished. And then stepping into that place of, so it was about maybe about a year ago. Well, I mean, okay, so the webinar that I attended was about 2 years ago, almost, in November. And so this is one of those things where I come to your webinar and we do this, and like, so my soul knew I was ready to receive this, but I'm still like, what is this all about? And I'm just kind of on the journey. But I can see where the energy started to shift, because it was about 18 months ago where I realized that the work that I'm meant to do is beyond the physical body. Like the nutrition that I was doing because of my own health crisis to get my body back to where it needed to be, I just needed to heal my physical body so that I had the strength and the capacity to then step into this next phase where I'm at right now, which is being a spiritual teacher. And on my Instagram handle, I have empowerment coach. So I do have this blend of like knowing when and how to stand in my power, but this nurturing side of with that open heart that you talked about. So I feel like that's one of my gifts, is the ability to be fierce and strong and yet nurturing and loving in the space that I hold for the people who come to me. So everything that you say resonates, and I appreciate that you were willing to go through this with me. My question for you in this moment, is there anything that comes through for you that you see that sounds like I'm ready to hear in this moment?
I think the trust you talk about is in the 4 here. So what's going to happen as you expand what your work is that you will be asked to take greater and greater leaps of faith, usually financial, to do this. Okay, this is all about the flow of nature, the 4. And the flow of nature includes abundance, which does include money, but it's not just money alone, it's the flow of nature in general. So to expand the work, challenges will turn up where you've got to take a leap of faith. You're not 100% guaranteed it's going to happen. The idea is to take the challenge, is to take the leap of faith, knowing it's a one-way trip. Like there's a chasm here. And I think there's one of the Indiana Jones movies, the third one. He has to find the Holy Grail. He has to walk across this chasm, and he walks across in total faith, and then he discovers there's a 1 foot wide pathway. Well, that's you. You have to take a leap of faith and walk across the chasm. And only when you take the first step will the hand of God be there, because you trusted. But you won't see the pathway until you trust. And that's actually how what you do will expand. And the leaps of faith will get bigger and bigger. But after a while, you'll see them coming, which is what a 4 is. You can sense, it's called symbolically the right nostril, sense new things coming. So when new things come, and get prepared for them. Be prepared to take the leap. And then each time you take a leap, it gets easier. But even though the leaps get bigger, it's another one of these. If I take the leap, it'll be okay, even though you might go, woo, I don't know, I want to jump there. But if you do that, life will unfold even more so. So new things are going to turn up, Jen, especially because you move through the 35 to 42 phase, and you're moving to the 42 to 49 phase, the 7th cycle. That's when things start to solidify on the mission. So these are the key. Allow the new things to come, embrace them, and enjoy the ride. Because stuff's going to turn up you can't even imagine when you start doing that. But you have to take each one to prepare for the next one. and the next one. And the timing depends on us at a conscious level, with how things unfold in the contract. All the potential is there, but we have to take the actions of working through the issues which we face. And so the timing is dependent totally on when that action occurs, how long it takes us to clear our resistance or our fears or whatever else is holding us back. And that's, in this case, this is how the good stuff, more of the good stuff turns up in life.
Awesome.
Does that help?
Yeah, it's very helpful, and it feels very accurate with where I am in this moment in time. And I feel like, you know, I just had my birthday a couple weeks ago, and I'm still like kind of amazed and like that this is actually happening right now in this moment. Like, I'm so honored to have this experience with you. This is an example of where I took a leap of faith and reached out to you and wasn't sure if you would respond, and you did, and here we are. And I'm so grateful to share this and to have this experience with you. And so, yeah, I really appreciate you sharing that. And what I also noticed is, you know, on some level, I manifested a partner, my husband, to support me through this process, which I'm so grateful for. As you were going through that, I just kind of realized that there's, you know, there's our work, and then there's also the people in our lives that we have soul contracts with too, which I know you do work around that as well. So, so we're just talking about me specifically, but there is a part where, you know, that the people in our lives also play such a significant role in the choices that we make. So yes, I thank you for doing that. I appreciate it. And I love the work that you do. I want to, for the listeners, to ask, where can people find more information out about you, and not just in soul contract, but also, we didn't get into the divine healing. And for the listeners, I am going to share his website, his social media links. But if you could just give us, you know, there's a couple things we talked about, just give us your website. I'm sharing the book, and then any up and coming trainings, webinars, or readings that you're doing, because I see that you have an event that's coming up pretty soon. Would you be willing just to share where people could find more information on that?
Yeah, we're actually training practitioners in this work that you saw today next week on the 10th to the 14th of October, and you can find out about that. It's all online on Zoom. It's a global training. It's at soulcontractreading.com. If you want to find out about the work in general, it's center with an ER for consciousascension.net is the main website there. If you just want a reading, that's soulcontractreadings.com with an S. And if you want to learn about divine healing, the link is freeupyourlifewithdivinehealing.com.
Can you tell me a little bit about what that's about? Free up your life, because we didn't. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's basically a 4-day online training on Zoom where you learn level 1 of divine healing, which is based on ask and you shall receive. It's about learning to align with the higher self. And you learn 26 different charts, healing processes, which help dismantle the soul contract, all the karmic patterns, and any blockages to manifesting life purpose, soul purpose. So that runs online as well. So the two go together, really. They go together quite nicely. Yeah.
So do you have to have knowledge of the soul contract class first to attend the?
No, you don't.
Okay.
No.
Okay.
You don't.
Awesome. And do you do any live events or traveling or anything, or are you just in the space of online training at this moment?
I used to travel to the States a lot to run trainings, but because it's turned into a global business, it doesn't matter where I go. Other people have to fly anyway. So in the end, I decided I'm just going to do it on Zoom, because the courses will run globally from California to the Eastern Bloc, to Australasia, Japan, Asia, all over the place, South Africa. So I just stay in one place, and we set the timing of the courses. So it's Californians have to get up early, but at least the People in Slovakia and the Eastern Bloc don't go to bed too late. So we focus it on the Northern Hemisphere, really, Europe and North America. Mm-hmm. That's where the majority of people who are into this work we do come from.
Do these trainings teach you how to do your own soul contract reading, or do they teach you how to become a teacher or a practitioner that can offer this service to others? Or is there two different trainings for that?
The trainings teach you to become a practitioner, so you can deliver readings to others. But obviously, with a soul contract, so you understand a lot more about your own chart by studying it anyway. And the Divine Healing Training, which is the divinehealingtraining.com, that basically teaches you to be a practitioner to heal yourself. So some people just come, once they learn what their contract is, just to heal themselves and actualize their soul contract. But it also allows you to heal others. So basically, they both enable you to become a practitioner and build a practice. And it can all be done online. So there's, the limit is how far the English-speaking or whatever language you speak world is, really.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love that. And it just actually makes me so grateful that we live in a time and place where we can do this online. And, the perception of time and distance, it's a perception anyway, and we're able to just come together and actually have these experiences together. And so I think it's really cool that we live in a time where we can do that and we don't have to travel, because there is so much energy in just being in the space of a group online as we are creating right here. So I think it's pretty powerful, and I love that. So I will be checking those courses out, and I'm going to share, you did a wonderful job of sharing so many different platforms where people can find you on Gaia, on YouTube, your websites, your book, your Facebook. So I'm going to be sharing all of those for the listeners in the show notes. And before we go, as we wrap it up, I just want to give you the opportunity to maybe share, if you had one thing to just share, a person like you, as I see as such a mentor, a wise person who has really had so many life experiences and created so much. If you had a nugget of wisdom to share for the listeners in the audience, what would that be?
I would say, a bit like I said earlier, it's about being as clear and present and grounded as possible with yourself and feeling what your body wants to do, what your heart wants to do, because that's your soul talking to you. And just allow that to be your guide. Just don't think about it too much. We all spend too much time thinking about it in the West. And meditate, be in that inner journey, because that will guide you much more than all the distraction out in the world and all the chaos. And that will eventually allow you to deliver your gift of service, whatever that is.
I love that. That's
what I'd say. Being present with yourself, being present with your spirit.
I love that. Thank you. And I'm receiving that as you say that. And I often refer to what you said as body wisdom.
Yeah.
In the way that our body does speak to us. So, and then I think there's a part of just receiving it too, just receiving what you're receiving. So Thank you for sharing that. Well, Nicolas, it has been so wonderful to have this time with you. I'm so grateful. Thank you so much for all that you do, all the work that you've done, that you continue to do. I'm just really grateful that you decided to break that pattern and step into your soul contract, your soul's work, so that others could see what they're here to do and feel what they're here to do. As I am in and on this journey right now, and people are witnessing where I am, I'm able to share how I've gotten here and where I'm going, and how the soul contract work has created some guidance for me along the way. So I appreciate that.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Jen. It's been a real pleasure.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Have a wonderful evening.
Okay, thank you.